investing is for everyone or almost everyone. It is about, the American dream is about increasing what we own as individuals to support ourselves and our families. There's a lot of complicated questions, a lot of things to consider. We want to arm people with the resources to do it in an informed way.
Thanks to the president's initiative, a new development are the Trump accounts.
This idea of every child's first financial account being an investment account, it's really a big change in how we think about money.
I think it has the prospect of really changing lives. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Material Matters. Today, it's my great pleasure to sit down with John Moses, the SEC's Director of the Office of Investor Education and Assistance. While not always making headlines, the Office of Investor Education and Assistance plays an invaluable role in fulfilling our mission here at the SEC. By providing Americans with education resources and financial planning tools, John's office works every day to help Americans invest wisely, avoid fraud, and lay the foundation for a secure financial future. So today, we are going to discuss the work that the office is doing towards that end and much more. So let's get started. So John, it's thanks for doing so much for American investors and for being here to discuss this.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, Chairman Atkins, and it's an honor to help lead this team on the SEC's behalf.
Well, it's interesting. The U.S. now has for a while had the world's largest capital markets, and we're fully half of the global capitalization in our markets. And obviously, there are investors that are participating in the markets from around the world. And whenever I go abroad in Japan or the UK or the European Union, my counterparts over there basically just say, well, how can we replicate this investment attitude, the ethos for investing, risk-taking that Americans exemplify? And, they talk about doing it from the top down. We have to have, this, that, and other to try to attract them. But, my argument is always, you have to do it from the bottom up. The investors have to be interested in taking a risk to make investments. And so how do you, approach that? And maybe you could just cover what your office is doing and how you address these sorts of issues.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. We have an opinion at our office, and I think it is something we feel here at the SEC throughout, that investing is for everyone or almost everyone as part of their financial planning and their financial journey. It is more accessible than it's been ever before, and we have all kinds of innovations and marketplace developments, I think, to thank for that, in addition to a situation where we have people responsible for more and more of their long-term expenses. So whether that's retirement or education or just saving up to buy a home. And there's a tremendous amount of enthusiasm and interest in personal finance. More and more, we think that enthusiasm and interest goes towards investing. So a lot of what we see in personal finance might be about debt reduction, which is obviously really important, right, or about increasing one's salary, which is important. So what we earn and what we owe. Our office and the SEC really is about what we own. And it's, as we think about America 250 more and more, it is about the American dream is about increasing, what we own as individuals to support ourselves and our families. In terms of our office, maybe I would start with the work that we do on the investor assistance side, because I just mentioned this enthusiasm for investing, but there's a lot of complicated questions, a lot of things to consider. And our investor assistance team does a great job trying to support people when they have questions. So any American investor can go to help.sec.gov, send in a question or a problem that they might be having, and a member of our team will respond to them and help them figure out their question. It might be they trying to find an old 401k, or they don't understand a certain product, and we can help them connect with the right resources. Of course, we can't give investment advice, but we can help them navigate definitions and navigate problems that they might be having with their accounts or their financial services professionals. So the assistance team, I think, is a really big part of what we do, and it helps give the thousands of people that contact us every year the confidence that they're on the right track. Another part of our office is the team, our chief counsel's team, that helps put out alerts and bulletins. So this is information on an emerging fraud or scam that might be targeting investors, or it might just be sort of a long-term thing to keep in mind. So I like it when we put out information on new account types, or account types that people need to keep in mind and might not be top of mind. So we had a bulletin recently, for example, updating information on investing through health savings accounts, or HSAs. So we try to keep that kind of information flowing to the American investor in a place that they can trust. And the place that you get that information and more is on investor.gov. So this is our website that has information like those alerts and bulletins, basic definitions, and it also has tools, like you mentioned, some of the tools and resources. One of the most popular tools that we have is our compound growth calculator.
Right.
So this is one of the most popular calculators on the web, and it helps people understand the power of compound growth. And so if things like stocks and bonds and funds are the what of investing, compound growth is really the why of investing. And so that's one of the more popular tools that the team runs.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how money grows so quickly through compounding of interest, or if you reinvest your dividends through a DRIP program, direct reinvestment investor program, that sort of thing is really amazing. How that works to your advantage.
Absolutely. And that's the idea, is that you can be doing something else, right? Like we just were out and talking to service members in California. They're doing another job. Hopefully they can have their money work for them while they're working to earn
Right.
money, and seeing that the possibilities there are really really impressive and exciting to most investors when they run the scenarios.
So I did want to. So you mentioned there that just last week, the two of us were in Camp Pendleton, just north of San Diego, California, which is a major Marine base out there, serving the Pacific Fleet. And so we saw, a fair amount of their weaponry, and then also these very very neat landing craft that they have, that they use, to help support various missions. But also, more importantly, we sat down and spoke with about 200 new recruits that were coming in as new Marines, and very young folks, just out of either high school or college. So I thought that was great. You did a wonderful job out there with respect to talking to them about savings and investing. But maybe you can describe some of these outreach programs that y'all are doing.
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned some of the online work we do, like
Right.
investor.gov and the resources that we have there. But we also do as an SEC team about 500 or even more outreach events in person, a few online still, but mostly in person, all over the country. So we do that with military communities, like the event that we did last week. We do that with older adults. So we'll go and visit retirement communities, and we do a lot with students. So we'll visit colleges, high schools, and I think more and more we'll be visiting even elementary and middle schools, thinking about investing and how that fits into young people's lives as they look forward to what's really their biggest investing asset, which is actually time. So we try to do these events either, again, through our team here at headquarters, or through our regional offices, which are also very active. And, we try to get away from the big cities. Certainly we do things there too,
Right.
but we've done some events over the last couple of months in Alabama, in the Gulf Coast of Mississippi and Florida, and again, meet with military communities, with all different kinds of colleges and universities, community colleges, big state schools, HBCUs. And there's, as we commented at the beginning, there's just a tremendous amount of enthusiasm for investing and for building wealth, wisely. But there's also a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of questions about how to get started.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, back when, I was younger and working here at the SEC with Chairman Levitt in his office, but I was tasked with setting up these town halls for him to go out and speak to some of these groups. And so I picked that up when I came back as a commissioner in the aughts. And then now, as chairman, I'll be doing some other activities with you around the country, and look forward to doing that. So one, novelty that's come up, a new development here of the last year, basically, are the Trump accounts. Obviously, thanks to the president's initiative to get this and Congress's passing of the legislation to enable it. But also, we are not acting just on our own. We're working actively with the Treasury Department. That this is really focused on them. They're in charge of rolling this out, and which is very exciting. And then other parts of the government. Maybe you can sort of summarize this as well.
Yeah, certainly. So I think Treasury's done an amazing job on this. There's a huge amount of excitement within the department, and we're grateful to join initiatives like Treasury hosting FLEC, the Financial Literacy and Education Council's work to promote Trump accounts, both in terms of their functioning, but also in terms of what they mean for financial education and specifically investor education. So they've been really active with this in terms of events, and in fact, they've just done an event with the Department of Interior focused on making sure that tribal communities are aware of Trump accounts.
Great.
And making sure again that this information gets to every corner of America. I think that maybe the most exciting thing about it is this idea of every child's first financial account being an investment account. It's really a big change in how we think about money, really, right? So just thinking about, again, what we earn or what we owe to focusing more on what we own. And I think there's a lot of enthusiasm. There are some questions. So we have a new resource on investor.gov for Trump accounts. So anyone can go to investor.gov/Trump accounts and see some basic information there, and also help to sort of contextualize Trump accounts with regard to their overall investing picture, right? So they can see information about other types of accounts at that site. So that's a good place to start for folks, is to go to investor.gov/Trump accounts and learn about what some of the features are there. So probably the most newsworthy feature is the $1,000 that newborns get,
Yep.
right? And that gets appropriately a ton of coverage in the press, and certainly we talk about that a lot. It's very exciting. Maybe we try not to give investment advice, but maybe a piece of advice, if we get kind of close to that, is take the free money. So families should open up an account and take the free money if they have a newborn that's eligible for that $1,000 of seed money over the next few years. I think actually, though, that's not the most exciting part of the accounts, maybe the most newsworthy, but the most impactful part of the accounts is getting more Americans investing. So millions of people have already signed up for them. And it also helps us learn by doing, right? So this is the best way to learn something, is to do it. And so now we'll have millions of new investors, millions of new investing families that are learning about investing by doing it. And I think it is without a doubt the most powerful investor education opportunity that we've seen, because we're going to have people engaging with index funds. That's what's invested in. So they're long-term accounts. And they have other features that we think are really worth considering and taking advantage of. So long-term accounts, you can't access the money in most cases until after you're 18. So investing is a long-term endeavor. It's low fee. By statute, they can only charge a very low fee on these. They're diversified, so they're going to be in broad-based index funds, and they're tax advantaged. So lots of things to recommend these, even if you end up approaching them, just as one part of your investment portfolio. And then the other thing I think that's really neat about the Trump accounts, Chairman Atkins, is that Treasury's been really hard at work with their partners on the app. So I mentioned to you that I just the other day downloaded the app for my son, and we've got signed up. You go quickly from there over to the IRS website, make sure that you're registered, and then they're going to be rolling this out for millions of new investors over the next, really just the next few weeks and months. And I think this will be a really important year for investor education because of the work that's being done on it.
It's very exciting. And I think it has the prospect of really changing lives and making people's future prospects much more stable and having a part in our economy through active investing and getting started at a young age, and then taking advantage of that power of compounding over time of your assets. I think the great hack, or if you want to call it that, at the end, even though Trump accounts, go away at 18 or whatever the age is, but you can roll it over into an IRA or into Roth IRA, a traditional one or a Roth one, and right as the child then goes off to university or starts working or goes to the military or whatever. So it's not like the whole investment scheme comes to an end. There is a natural progression.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's maybe another element that we hope will sort of come through with the Trump accounts is that it's the start of something, not the end of something. And so, as you said, they essentially convert into a traditional IRA. So we think that some families, maybe millions of them over time, will use this as a base for retirement, which is great. There's another aspect, though, I think is really exciting, which is the philanthropic aspect. So, as you said, it's not just newborns that are eligible for the accounts, although they're the ones that get the seed money from the government. There's also a philanthropic aspect here. So, famously, the Michael and Susan Dell are contributing. So, millions of other kids will get access to a contribution from them. We have increasingly people adopting states to contribute to the kids in those states, and it's meant to be a very efficient and effective way for philanthropists, including just local philanthropists, to contribute to the future of the kids where they live. And I think that's going to end up being extremely popular and really meaningful over time.
I agree. I mean, could be obviously a really great boost to people's retirement planning and to just having that nest egg for rainy days and whatnot.
And so when we do those outreach events going forward, we've traditionally said, oh, maybe high school is appropriate, but more and more we might have elementary school kids who know about investing thanks to
and especially the power of compounding interest and dividends. Well, let's turn to another area that gets a lot of focus right now, and that's digital assets and with cryptocurrency. So often I'm asked, well, can you recommend a cryptocurrency for me to buy? Obviously, we don't do that. We don't recommend any particular investments, but this is also, I mean, it's a new field, a new frontier, and people are susceptible to hearing stories of their friends or others suddenly, getting rich quick. So that question also came up in Pendleton from a Marine out there. So, how are you approaching that in your office? Because the opportunity for fraud, we've seen that through actions that we've taken, at the SEC against people who lie, cheat, and steal in this area. It's not obviously immune from that. And in fact, it's attractive to some people to try to do that. So how are we trying to bolster people's defenses around this?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's probably the most common type of question that we get at our investor assistance team. And so there's a couple of things we're doing. First of all, of course, we have another site for digital assets on investor.gov where we're trying to inform individual investors about what's happening in this space. And of course, we refer to a lot of the content from the crypto task force. And we've increasingly been doing outreach events with members of the crypto task force as well to help hear from individual investors and to share information with them. And a lot of that information is, as you suggest, information on scams and frauds to watch out for. So we want people to be informed investors and to be skeptical investors that are asking questions about product types, asking questions about people that are promoting products that maybe the investor doesn't fully understand, and to not let excitement about a new and newsworthy product type overcome the knowledge that they've built around investing fundamentals. And so we try to get some information out there on investor.gov, and we'll be increasingly updating that. And we are also trying to make sure that people engage with this knowing what their options are. So, for example, if an investor just wants some exposure to some established digital assets, as you are well aware, they can do that through an SEC regulated product like an exchange traded fund, an exchange traded product that allows them to get access, and they don't necessarily need to do something complex that they don't understand if they just want that basic access. And you were explaining this to the Marines, and I think that's an important foundational piece of information. As other information comes out, obviously there's more and more around tokenized securities, for example, and we've been working to put out information that's relevant to retail investors as those topics come up, so that people don't get confused and can't be tricked with information from promoters that's not true, or is trying to make them do something that they're not ready to do with their digital asset investments if they decide to go that way. I think overall, sort of as we've been discussing here, there's a lot of things that individual investors can do in terms of tax advantaged accounts, in terms of diversified low fee accounts, maybe in terms of investments that come with a match, like from an employer. And we want to make sure they understand those basics, even as they're considering new types of investments like digital assets. So again, I think it's all about context and basic information. Of course, we don't give advice about what to invest in, but we do encourage folks to look out for key red flags of fraud, and those exist in digital assets and crypto space, just like every other type of investment fraud. So if you're getting pressured to act too quickly, if you're being promised high guaranteed returns, we know from investment fundamentals that all investments have risk. So we think actually the best defense against fraudulent crypto scams is good information and good awareness about investment basics overall, because many of the red flags of scams are similar or even the same.
Right. Well, and just basically, if it sounds too good to be true, it is, right?
Absolutely. Right.
It is too good to be true, and you have to be very aware. And just because, why does this person coming to you, of all people, you don't know him from the man on the moon, and he doesn't know you either, and
Right.
why is he pitching you the best thing since sliced bread? So you have to be, and it has to be done immediately, like you were just saying, and the pressure type of campaign that people can put on. So all of those red flags are true for traditional things. Are there as well as novel issues, but are there any are you seeing any trends with respect to scammers these days? AI is a thing that comes up, its ability to mimic people's voices, even by just taking your snippets of your voice off of what you have on your voicemail,
Sure.
answering greeting. So things like that. Are you seeing any trends there?
We unfortunately, yes, we are seeing some, and certainly others, other regulators and others in the industry are seeing these too. So you mentioned AI. Certainly, we see frauds and scams are being perpetrated increasingly on an industrial scale, right? So we see scammers that are doing full-fledged campaigns against American investors and trying to trick them. Maybe the platform is broad, but the pitch to the individual is specific based on what they know about you, going
Right.
to what you just said. And then a few other sort of elements of that, and AI is being used for a lot of exciting things, but also for in the commission of crimes. And when it comes to things that we see a lot lately, I think maybe I'd flag two. One is impersonation scams.
Right.
So we see folks, as you suggested, being mimicked. So we even see this actually. Commissioner Peirce was kind to let us use her likeness in an alert we did late last year to warn people against scammers that are impersonating government officials, including SEC officials, including specifically Commissioner Peirce, because they know that she is. Speaks on certain issues, and so they can sort of leverage that to suggest that she has endorsed products. Of course, she doesn't do that. They make up, wholesale accounts that she doesn't even have, and suggest that either fees need to be paid or things like that. And so we want people to see these warnings before they fall for the scam. Again, if folks have a question, they should go to investor.gov or contact us at help.sec.gov to try to understand if something is fraudulent or not. So impersonation schemes are a big one. Maybe a second one is something that was really prominent a year or two ago, and certainly persists, and that's what we call relationship investment scams. Right. So often we think about these as romance scams, and we've seen those for years, maybe since the dawn of the internet. But these are not always romance based. They can be fraudulent business pitches or other types of relationships that are built on some common interest, and maybe the investment scam doesn't come until much later, right? So these are often what they call long cons that don't really reveal themselves to be based on an investment scam until later, and then you find yourself trying to follow this new friend or this new relationship with you that you have, follow their supposed success, and that's the beginning of an investment scam that can cost too many Americans too much money, and we see both of those increasingly.
Well, these sorts of affinity frauds have plagued us for years. Bernie Madoff was one example of how he preyed on people of his same religion and his social circles and whatnot. And we see too often with churches and synagogues and other sorts of things where that affinity building up that breaking down the barriers of somebody having his, kind of guard up, and then using that to go in and then scamming the people. It's one of the worst type of frauds out there. So I know we're here at a time, but it's been wonderful to chat about this. It's a very important topic, obviously, for savings and investing for the future, but then also to be mindful about all the ne'er-do-wells who are out there who want to relieve you of your money and your investments. So you have to be on guard. It's it can be a dangerous world, but if you are forearmed and forewarned, then hopefully you can avoid that. Is, I guess, the timeless type of warning that we have.
Absolutely. And I think, as you started at the beginning, there's an incredible amount of enthusiasm for investing as a way to build wealth. And we want to arm people with the resources to do it in an informed way.
Exactly. So anyway, all right. Well, thanks for joining me today. And I'm sure we'll do this again, too, as things are updated and move on, in the real world. But thank you very much for doing this.